How are we all doing?
Hey, go, Larry. I think we are all back.
I just want to say this about EDI. Just if you can just write this down somewhere, it's really effective instruction. Really, and if you can just boil it down to anything, it's effective teaching modalities, it's effective engagement, it's effective interaction. And that's it. I would like to go over the brain research. One of the things I want to show you about this, and again, if you have this on your pamphlet, your handouts, I'd like you to write this down. Where it says sensory memory, right here, I'm just going to go ahead and, would you please write, if you have a handout, sensory memory is short-term memory. Short-term means this, it goes in one ear and out the other. We do things all day, but truly the things we remember are the things that were eventful. So if I drive to and from my house every day and it's boring, then I can't tell you what I did on the way home. Sometimes, you just drive and bam, you're home. And you don't even remember how you got home. It's like you didn't even have to look at the roads. You're singing in your car, your radio, but have a emu hit your front bumper and all of a sudden it's an event. You'll remember that. So one of the things we have to remember about our little guys is that unless we make learning eventful, it'll be forgotten. We need the students to interact, whether it's chanting, reading, choral reading, pointing, whether it's drawing and pair sharing, repetition. Our students need to do something. They need some event that they can recall. I always tell my teachers this: the surest way of having your kids forget is just lecture. Just talk. We need to think about that. I know the information. How do you transfer any information? You've got to have the kids take ownership. We have to have higher order thinking and complex tasks. That's up here. Complexity. So our students have to have mastery. And the only way they're going to have mastery is by doing what we're showing you in red. So if you look at our memory retention is achieved through attention. Everyone read it with me. Attention, rehearsal, mnemonics, visual, and auditory. This covers the three dimensions, the whole gambit of how we learn: hearing, seeing, and touching. We need to make sure that we provide these avenues for our students to recall information. Sometimes we tell a story and they remember a concept because of a story. How many of you sang the alphabet? I did. We learned by singing. We used to have something in America, and it was called School Rock. And we used to sing conjunction, junction, what's your function? And we sang it as little kids. But it's how we remember what a conjunction does and how a bill becomes a law. And so we're going to talk about why that's so important. If you just have the students listen to you, 5% will remember what you talked about 5 minutes, 10 minutes later. The students need to do something in order to recall. So sensory memory is short-term memory. And if the students don't have some event, something that sparks an interest, they are in what we call zone out or off task mode. They're completely zoning out. They're just being entertained. I'm going to say that one more time. Our kids are being entertained. Write this down. All of our students are participants, not spectators. They're spectators when they pay to go see football or whatever, other sports. But they need to be a part of the team in the classroom. Every student is a team member and they are a participant. Even if they don't want to talk, they're going to write on their whiteboards. They have to produce something. So if you just lecture, it goes in one ear and out the other. It's forgotten. So remember that. You want your students to forget? Just talk. The brain is like any other muscle that you build. If your students want to get strong at any sport, whether it's tennis, running, cycling, soccer, whatever, we need to make sure that they get strong muscles. So here's the other thing. Our students need to do the heavy lifting. They need to do the hard work necessary for them to build their muscle memory. Now, I know this is making sense to you, but I think sometimes we forget that when we are teaching new definitions, when we are explaining how a concept is navigated in a lesson. And we forget that when we do not check for understanding. Teachers, thumbs up is not checking for understanding. If we say, do we all agree? What do you think the kids' heads are going to do? Does anybody need to know learn any more or go over anything? Do we need to go over EDI and DI? No, we got it. You sure? I don't need to do any more? No, we know the difference between EDI and DI, right? But then if I go back and I go ahead and ask you what is some of the differences, they're going to go like, and maybe you'll know, maybe you won't. But I guarantee your little kids, they need to be taught and they need to be asked questions. So we never say, do we understand? Can I move on? Are there any questions? Because most of the time our kids will say what? No, we got it. And we'll move on. The only time you need to do the thumbs up is, are we all ready for recess? Okay. So we want to remember that our students will tell you, yes, we're ready. If they do, this is what we need to remember. All of us need to remember this. If they say, yes, I get it, here's what we need to do. All right. Erin, I saw that you said thumbs up. Tell me why you agree. Keep the kids accountable. That's the second thing you need to write down. Students are all participants, not spectators, and they are all of them accountable. So when you ask them a question and they go, yes, I agree, thumbs up, then you need to hold them to that and say, okay, tell me, Nina, why did you agree? Tell me, Angela, why did you say yes? Hold kids to that higher standard of accountability by having them prove why they say they understand it or they get it. This is how we do it. We need to provide, look up here, multimedia experiences. Really highlight multi. Students don't learn in one dimension. They need multiple different applications. Multiple means I'm going to show you with my hands. You're going to practice it with your hands. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to have you write it. Multi means just that. Different avenues for kids to remember. I use gestures. I use my tone. So if I want my students to really, really get something, you will hear it in the way I speak. Students, this is the definition of a conjunction. Fanboys, I want you to remember that. A conjunction is used when we are putting sentences together, when we're using compound sentences, or I want to make sure the students, and sometimes we use an apostrophe. I want to make sure my students see my gestures. We use a comma and we're putting things together. And we use the following words. F is for, A is N is nor, B is but, O is or, Y is yet, and S is so. So now that you understand yet, you still need to learn, but we haven't finished. And so I want to make sure my kids emphasize and hear me. So I give them gestures. I will put together a mnemonic. That mnemonic was fanboys. You see what I did? I made sure the students, I taught them a mnemonic. That's what this means, a mnemonic device, an acronym. I'll put it in a sentence. I'll remind them by using gestures. I'll use all this. It's a multiple way of getting kids to transfer information. That's what that transfer. See the red in transfer? How do we transfer? I need your attention. I need your focus. I need your rehearsal. Now, teachers, there is a huge difference between rehearsal and repetition. Before I tell you, I want you to tell your partner, Bees go first. What do you think the difference is between repetition and rehearsal? Go ahead and have that discussion, please, in your groups. And then write them on your whiteboard. What is the difference between rehearsal and repetition? Okay. Did everyone get a chance to talk? This time you can go thumbs up. Everyone get a chance to peer share. Okay. Did you write it on your whiteboard? So Nina, call on someone and have them just share out. What is the difference in your own words between repetition and rehearsal?
Vincent.
I said that rehearsal is more meaningful practice compared to repetition. It's just doing it over and over again, where you'd put more thought and differentiation through the rehearsal. I
like that. Very nice. All right. That was Vincent. Could you call on someone, Vincent?
Michael.
Are you picking on your buddy?
Yeah.
I have no friends.
I'm your friend. I may be from California, but we're friendly over here.
I just said repetition is like more direct repeating what has been said or taught. Rehearsal is sort of putting it into practice, rehearsing it more independently.
I like that answer. Very good. And then you get to pick someone, but not Vincent.
Aaron.
What do you guys all play rugby together? What's going on?
Saw that one coming. All right. I've got rehearsal as practicing a skill, whereas repetition is just repeating. So it's not actually no understanding repetition, whereas rehearsal is showing some understanding as well.
Okay, I like that. Nina, would you like to call on anybody else, or would you like to give us your answer?
No, I'm happy to give you my answer. I guess Linda and I were talking about that repetition being a bit more parroting back, whereas rehearsal, like everyone said, it's more that deeper understanding. You're practicing that skill that has ideally been taught, and embedding that and practicing that constantly.
Beautiful. We repeat when we want the students to have rote memorization. What's 6 times 2? What's 6 times 3? What's 6 times 4? We rehearse when we apply the algorithm. It's called application. Where do you want your kids to be? I hope we all agree we want them to be at the application. It's not enough the kids can tell me what wrote and recall information. Anyone can recall the definition, but it's quite different when you want them to apply it, that concept. And we need to know, that's why we said rehearsal, but rehearsal comes first through repetition. You want to know your lines? When you sing, you read the lines first, over and over and over. And then you add music. And now you're doing 2 things. You're recalling the words, but now you're also singing the notes. The same thing when you want to act. You practice your lines, you repeat them till you know them by heart. But the rehearsal is the application. Now you got to go and you have to apply those lines using what? Meaning, tone, the inflections, all of that, multiple things you do other than just learning the lines. Anyone could be an actor if you just read the lines, but what makes an actor great? They make it real. They apply all of the nuances. The same thing for concepts. I don't want my kids merely to learn the algorithms and merely learn how to write. I need them to apply it in all of these different applications, how it's used, the compositions. And so we want to recall information, but then we need to be able to, conceptually, we need to be able to apply it. All right. I think that's it. I wanted to say that's why it's important to know, where do we want our students? We want them at the rehearsal level, where they take all of those little learning objectives, and then they're finally able to write a narrative piece. Or you teach them all about character, and now they're able to identify characters in a story. All right, now, attention. I need to make sure that I have their what? Eyes and ears. Remember that? I need your eyes and your ears. How do you do that? I need you to point. What am I pointing at? Tell me. And then what am I saying? I want you to repeat. So that's how I know I have the eyes and the ears. You need to make sure. Everyone, what's this word? And then repeat after me. The word is analysis. Now let me hear it. So I have their ears, ears and eyes, ears and eyes, ears and eyes. All right, mnemonic. You all remember the animal taxonomy? How many of you remember the animal taxonomy? Raise your hand. Yes, thank you. Aaron, my man. All right, Aaron. Anybody else? Let's see. All right. I think we got it, but here's the thing. If you use it in a sentence, you'll always remember it. And this is how we remember an acronym. King Philip came over for good supper. King, kingdom, Philip, phylum, came, class, over, order, for, family, good, genus, S, species. Supper. All right. Didn't we just do it in TAPL? We use TAPL, Teach Apple, to remember how to teach and how to ask questions. Okay. So what is a mnemonic that you use in the classroom, or that you were taught when you were a student? Think about it. Talk to your group. That's a group discussion. And then put it on your whiteboard. Okay, another 10 more seconds. And then we're just going to have every group. So Nina, you're going to pick all of the different 7 groups. All right, everyone's going to tell me what's a mnemonic device that you use in the classroom now, or that you learn. Okay, go ahead.
All right, Ange and Stacey, do you want to share yours?
Okay, Angela, Stacey.
We've just taught the spelling of could, would, and should with the OU lucky ducky.
Now, here's what I like everybody to do in a complete sentence. The mnemonic that we just taught was, and so everyone's going to do the same thing. You're going to use the word mnemonic in your response. So, Angela, could you please repeat that? The mnemonic that we just used.
The mnemonic that we just used was the OU lucky ducky, to teach the children how to spell could, would, and should.
Fantastic. Let's pick someone else, Nina.
All right, Lisa, Michael, your group, and Kerry, if Kerry's present. Oh yeah, hey Kerry.
Hey, Kerry.
The mnemonics that I use to teach the strings on a guitar are every adorable dog gets bones easily.
All right, all the strings of the guitar. Beautiful.
Sharon, Amy.
The mnemonic that I remember from long ago is to teach because big elephants upset small elephants. Always upset small elephants.
Very good. And then
Ash and Beck.
Ashley, Beck, thank you.
Ours is the because as well, but we've got big elephants can always understand small elephants.
Okay. Very good.
Sonia, Vincent, Kelsey.
West.
I always remember.
Good.
Brianna, Kiara, Rachel.
We use the Oreo paragraph structure, opinion, reason, evidence, and restate opinion.
And Tamika and Aaron and Sharon.
We had the famous bit. So last year when we were doing like compass directions and stuff in maths, it was never eat soggy wheat bix. That was like a go-to, which was good.
And we were just talking here, obviously in our prime lessons, our problem solving strategy. So UPAC, so understand, plan, answer, check. So just that procedure on problem solving and students following all the steps to ensure they understand what it is that they're doing and answering the problem and checking their understanding.
All right. So the reason I had to do this was because a lot of our students will recall information if you just put them into gestures. If you come and think about the multiple media ways, and I'm going to tell you really quickly what works, and I'm going to show you. You all know figurative language, right? Like, okay, we do similes and metaphors, and then we use. I'm going to just show you really quickly. Everyone go like this: simile. Simile, you're comparing two things that are not the same. They're different. They have something in common using like or as. This is an L, this is an A. All right, here we go. A simile is what? Comparing two things that are not the same, that have something in common using like or as. My brother is as tall as a giraffe. Who am I comparing? Two things. Are they the same or different? Different. What do they have in common? Tall. And how do I know it's a simile? It has like or as. So when my students, I'm asking them, all right, is it a simile? How do you know? And if I do this, I'll say, no, it doesn't have like or as, so it cannot be a simile. All right, that's very close to a metaphor. A metaphor compares almost the same thing, but it doesn't use like or as. A metaphor compares two things that are not the same. Period. My father's a bear in the morning. I'm comparing my dad to a bear. He's a grouch in the morning, but it's not a simile because it doesn't have like or as. So using gestures helps students. So if I do this, you know I'm talking about a simile. Elaboration stretches the truth. Everyone go like this: elaborate. It's figurative language because it goes beyond the literal. It goes beyond the literal. Figurative language goes beyond what it means. My mother makes a ton of money every day. No, it's a elaboration because it goes beyond. And the other one is personification. Everyone point to yourself. A person. This is the 4 types of figurative language. Personification. Animals and plants and clouds and leaves take on the personage of a human being. The leaves whispered and sang lullabies at night. Well, trees don't sing, they don't whisper. So it's a what? It's a personification because they take on the characteristics of a what? A person. This is a what, everybody? Because it does what to the truth? Stretches the truth. This is a simile because it uses, okay, and this is a simile, and that's a metaphor because that's it. It doesn't use anything else. When I do that, my students are able to recall the different types of figurative language. So if I do this in figurative language, or this, or if I do this, that helps a lot of students. And then I have them practice. Turn to your partner and tell them what a simile is. A simile compares two things that are not the same, that have something in common, using like or as. That's the type of mnemonic I'd like us to work on. Those types that will help students recall a lot of information. All right. So yeah, okay. And then every time you do this, I'm comparing and I'm what? Contrasting. Comparing, contrast. All right. And area is everything inside the edge. Yes, what's your question?
I was just wondering, how long does it take the kids to remember all these symbols? Because I know for myself here, that's a lot of hand gestures in one moment. And I can see, like, we do hand gestures with our spelling, and I'm still having to remind them of them, and we're 2 terms in. So how long do you expect for it to take kids to remember all these different hand gestures?
It's funny because if I'm doing this, let me be very honest, I only teach 2 of these at a day, one day. So I will teach simile and metaphor, one concept, and then the rest of the day, skill and guided, I always do this no matter what. So I'm saying, students, is this a simile? Let's read it together. My brother eats like a pig. Okay. And then what who are we comparing? Write it. And what is it they have in common? They like to eat a lot. And so how do you know it's a simile? Because it has like. So every time I do this, I always use the gestures, even when the students are just writing. So I do it, keep it active, and then the students, if they want to, they can do it with me, but just having them see me do it, they recall that information. So one day I'll do simile and metaphors, the next day I'll do personification, and I will do the elaboration. So how long does it take? It only takes me a couple of minutes. When I teach a concept, it takes me a couple of minutes to do this. Let's practice it. And then the rest of the time, we're actually doing that.
Well, what about student retention? You know, like how long does it take them for it to, you know, like how many times should you be doing that? Because obviously, you know, you've done similes and metaphors one day, then you've done personification, elaboration. You know, how is it like, say, 30 times before a student will retain that? Or
according to the brain research, some kids will do it, they'll get it quickly, 5 or 6 times. And some of our, other students may take 30, 40 times. It depends on your population. But here's what I found when I'm asking a question. So, all right, so students, let's take a look at these 2 types of figurative language. I'll go, remember, I'll just go like this, remember, does it have this or not? And that's all I do. And they'll say, oh, it can't be a simile because it doesn't have the like or as, and that's all I need to do. And my students will remember, okay, so it's got to be a metaphor. And so I'm just saying, when I do this, I just give them that as a prompt or one of the cues. And that helps. It actually, within the classroom, 20, 30 minutes, the students are able to recall just that simple gesture, even if they haven't practiced it 20 times. But again, remember what we're trying to get our kids to do. If they're bored and you want them to do something because they're like, they're getting a little tired, especially my little kids, I'll just have them do gestures, but they don't have to do a lot. By the way, this lesson, figurative language, is really taught like 3rd grade on up. So character is different. If I'm going to teach character, characters, what I think and what I say and what I do. And so that's it. I'm going to show you using gestures just how quickly this works when I teach this lesson in a little bit. So I'm going to do it. The kids are entertained because I am showing them a character. In a story is what you can tell a character by what they think, what they say, and what they do. All right. And then I will go over the concept. And so students, are they thinking it? Are they saying it? Are they doing it? And they'll go, oh, they're doing it. And so the kids are with me as I do this. Anyway, it's really, really quite quick that kids get the gist of what I'm doing by just using gestures. And the kids get to do it too. All right. Again, not everything needs to be that way. Older kids, the older students, I just do quick gestures. If I'm like comparing, if I'm connecting, if I'm showing a right angle, if I'm showing an acute angle, if I'm showing a obtuse angle or a right angle, I'll just go right angle, obtuse, acute, and we're done. That's it. Right? Obtuse, acute. Everyone point yourself. I'm cute. There you go. You'll never confuse that with obtuse. I'm cute. Cute. Right always has that little right. And then anything more than that is obtuse. It just takes a couple of seconds. Any questions? Any more hands? All right. So mnemonic, and then everything is, again, attention. I need visual. I need to stimulate their eyeballs. I need to stimulate their hearing. And so sometimes for little kids, especially for little kids, I will talk with a different voice, you know, and I would just say, I'm a little monkey or a mouse. And then the kids get more entertained. And I love to eat cheese. And I'm a character in the story. And so, you know I'm being silly, but the kids love it because they don't know me. But I use that because it goes beyond the auditory, and they see the character and I act it out. And so these are what I mean by stimulating outside the what we call formal register. The formal register is a character is identified by what they think or what they say. I mean, that's going to bore a kid. So we need to remember that we need to act like outside our normal dimensions. So we're going to transfer using these devices, what we call schemas. So let me go back here. Everything in red is a schema. It's a way to transfer all this information. There it is, schema development. And so we go from sensory, which is short term, using multimedia experiences, to working memory. And what I just did with you is working. So Ash, to your point, when I did the gestures, that's just today, but tomorrow they may forget it. So tomorrow I'm still going to do it, and the periodic review, I'm still going to do it. So after a while, the kids will transfer that into the long-term memory, and the long-term memory is the stuff that you recall forever. And this is how we get students to go into long-term memory, right? If I said, everybody, what's 4 times 8? You don't need a calculator. You all know what 4 times 8 is. That is your long-term memory. Okay. If I ask you to sing a lyrics to a song, and if I say Elton John, and I just start belting out Rocket Man, all of a sudden everybody's singing Rocket Man. And you probably hadn't heard it for a while. Why? Because it's in your long-term memory. And all I do is just get you started, and the rest of you are singing Rocket Man. You know, you're going crazy. So long-term memory is memory that can be stimulated by activating prior knowledge. It's there. It just needs to be shaken a little bit. Okay, so here we go. Short term. Everybody go short term. Short term. In one ear and out the other. Working memory. Transferring the different schema, attention, mnemonics, audio, visual. That's working memory. And then watch. We need to make sure we check for understanding and rehearse it. If we don't, it's also forgotten. One day isn't enough. You need to independent practice, homework, periodic review, periodic review, periodic review. And that's how we get it into what? Long-term, where you've got unlimited capacity. So one more time, short-term, in one ear and out the other, forgotten, forget about it. Working memory, I'm building muscle, okay? I'm doing the practice, but I haven't done it enough so that I can recall it the next day. It's just, I remembered it today, but tomorrow I won't remember it unless I do what? Periodic review, complex task, higher order thinking. That's what I'm pointing at right here. And that's how we get into long-term. That's everybody go like this. That's the application. That's the 20 times, 24 times. And that's how we get to long-term. Some kids quicker than others. Other kids longer. So we're going to take another break in 6 minutes. Here's what I'd like you to do. Turn to your partner and explain A's and B's and then B's to A's. What is the difference between short-term, working, and long-term memory? Okay, another 10 more seconds. And then, Nina, I'd like to have everybody, if it's too noisy, I'll let you know. But everybody, take yourself off of mute. Everyone. Tamika, Sharon, Brianna, Angela, Lisa, Ash, Sonia, everyone. Okay. Everyone. Can you all see this?
Automatic, do without thinking. Yeah.
Autonomic. Autonomic.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. This is what it is. This is where we want our kids to be. Our bodies are physiologically designed for efficiency. We learn so that we don't have to think about it anymore. How many of you drove to school and you didn't have to look at a GPS? All of you.
Yeah.
If I were to come to your school, wherever it is, I would need a GPS. Why? Because it's not automatically in my long-term memory. How many of you learn a sport or are involved in sport? Let's raise your hand. How many of you learn a sport? Okay. Tennis. Anybody learn tennis? Basketball. How many times did you have to throw that free throw before you didn't have to think about it anymore? It just came natural. That's how elite athletes become good. They do without thinking. They react. It's the same thing with any sport. You practice and practice until it becomes what? It just becomes muscle memory. You do without thinking. So the autonomic nervous system is how our kids learn and how they're able to, if I were to say, what's 3 times 9, and every kid says 27, or 2 times 4, that's because they're not thinking anymore. It's automaticity. So when you do long term, you're not thinking about the lyrics. All of you are just singing and you're not having to look at any lyrics because you have them internally. It's how we drive every day. When you first started to drive, and we're going to take a break 1 minute, every one of you had white knuckle syndrome. You were all like, oh my gosh, I'm behind a car, and you know, everyone shut up, I don't want to get in an accident. And you didn't have any music on, and you weren't, you know, now look at you. I mean, you're drinking wine and kidding kids and look, I'm just kidding. So you know what I mean? You're singing, you're listening to the radio, and you're carrying on conversations. But I guarantee when you first learned how to drive, you were focused. You had white knuckles. You were like, now look at you. I mean, you see how you progressed? And that's how anyone progresses in any field. That's how concert pianists can they don't need music. They can do it to automaticity. That's long-term memory. What we want our kids to do is practice that repetition using the math algorithms so that they can just see it and they automatically know what to do so they can apply it. That's really how it's done. And that's why we're going to do, when we come back, higher order thinking. We're not going to get there until we do and have the kids do higher order thinking. And here's what I want you to write right now. And then we're going to take a break. What do I mean by that? I mean mastery. Higher order thinking to mastery. We need to have kids critically think. No more, I just know. No more, the answer is blank. I want them to be able to justify, interpret, apply, explain. That's what we're going to do when we come back.